Hello and welcome back to the Rugby League Hub podcast, a weekly podcast in which we discuss the goings-on in the rugby league world. As always, I'm joined by Ross Williams. How are we?
Not bad, mate. Nice to be back after a week off.
Yeah, long week off for some. Already and rested now?
Yeah. Match fit.
Match fit. We'll go straight into games this week. Not much news. Zach Hardig, probably the biggest headline, but we touched on him 2 weeks ago. So straight into it, and we kicked off this week with the Salford Red Devils against Hull KR. Salford picking up their first win of the season. Quite a convincing win against Hull KR, you could say.
Yeah, they need it. Salford really need to get that first win on the boards. I probably expected it to be a little bit closer. I think a couple of days before the game, I probably expected it to be a little bit closer. Bear in mind, Hull KR would not look that bad, to be honest. They did pretty well against Leeds, and they got the better of Catalan, although Catalan were awful that week. But I think leading up to the game, it became clear that Danny Maguire wasn't going to play. That was a big thing. Maurice Blair's been probably one of the better players, but he's not an halfback at the end of the day, not really. So it's kind of what Salford needed to do. They got the job done. Fair play to them.
Yeah, I just said Maurice Blair's played there in the past. Probably last time he was in Super League, and he can cover, but he doesn't bring the same level of performance that Danny Maguire does. And we said at the start of the season, it's going to be vital for them that he plays, and he plays well. When he doesn't, they've got players who can cover, but I think they will get found out, and even by teams like Salford, we've seen they can get found out, and it's going to be a tough season for Hull KR this year. I think it's going to be one of celebrate your small victories for them this year. Yeah,
I think I was on about this the other day. I think Hull KR really, if Hull KR stay up this year, that's not a failure. That's quite a successful season for me. I think when you get promoted to a division like this, I think just consolidating is your big thing. Hull KR are not going to be a team that's going to be winning every week, and they've picked up the result against Catalan, which is needed to be done. I think at home, I think they're going to be a threat to just about anyone. It's a very difficult place to go, and Castleford go there this week. That's going to be interesting. And as far as Salford goes, they weren't a million miles away against Wakefield, were they, to be fair? I mean, if Gareth O'Brien kicks a couple of goals, it's 2 wins from 2, isn't it? So Salford are kind of flying under the radar a little bit, but we'll see how they go in the next few weeks.
Yeah, you mentioned Hull KR at home there, and as we probably say today, it's going to be a tough time this year for most of the sides. It's a very close competition, and having that home advantage is a big thing. And I don't think, I just said, if they stay up, that's a success. No team is ever going to really come up from the Championship and challenge straight away. You've got to consolidate yourself and build on that. And I think, I just mentioned, home form is vital for them. Get a good crowd behind you.
Yeah.
And, you're going to, trip up some teams. We'll probably go on to Widnes later. There's going to be times when you can trip up a team and pick up a few points, and that's what they need to do, really.
Yeah, they're bananas getting out of in the league. Like I say, there's teams like that. There's them, Widnes, probably Huddersfield, certain time, as Warrington found out a few weeks ago. It's a really tricky place to go, and I think they probably need a bit of a Widnes mindset in the terms of nothing really to lose. I mean, they've gone in with a bit of expectation.
Yeah,
I feel, which they didn't really need, to be honest. I don't think they need to have that kind of expectation on them. I think they need to go in as a newly promoted side, admittedly with some talent in there, and just have a crack. Like I say, they are going to turn teams over. Wasn't to be on Friday night, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and you mentioned Huddersfield there. Move on to them. A tough away fixture for St Helens this week. Huddersfield's always a tough place to go for most sides. It was a tough slog of a game. St Helens ended up 26-12 winners, and a lot has been made. Personally, I listened to the game on radio, and the commentators were saying it's an ugly win, but it's one of those wins you need. It's all well and good, beating teams 40-odd points, but it's the tough wins that make the title winners in the end.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how ugly it is, does it? A win is a win, and undefeated, still going well. Like I said, Huddersfield are a tough side to beat, tough side to break down, and Huddersfield just probably lacking that 80-minute performance at the moment. I think we said it a few weeks ago. I think they're probably quite a good 40-minute side at the moment, and they need to kind of, hopefully they'll kind of pick that up towards as we move into the season. But at the moment they haven't quite got it. But needless to say, like I say, they slipped up Warrington in week 2. So they are tricky, especially at home. So, probably mark of a very good side from Saints just to pick up that victory.
And just a touch on Saints a second. In the first week, everyone went, wow, this is the team.
Yeah.
Everyone's been hyping up, they're going to be doing this all season. Since then, they've had a tough match against Catalans, tough match against Huddersfield. Is this a sign that, they're not going to run away? They're not going to be that amazing team that everyone's thinking about? Or is it just a sign of the competition in this league, do you think?
They're still getting wins out there, so it's not like they've kind of fallen off the tracks or anything like that. But, I think in this division this year, I don't think there is going to be many 60, 70 point blowouts and things like that. I think it is quite tight from top to bottom, really. There's not a great deal in... look at the scores this week, there's not a great deal between any of the teams, to be honest. I mean, who'd have thought, if you think back to last week, Castleford Widnes, this time last year, or rather 6 months ago, if you anticipated a score between Castleford Widnes, you wouldn't have thought 13-12.
No.
It's, there's a real... The gap has really narrowed between all the sides this season. Whether that's good or bad is whether it just means the quality's gone down or that's up for debate. But it's a really tight comp this year, and like I say, can't fault Saints. They're getting these ugly wins, and like I say, still undefeated, still flying.
Yeah, we'll move on to the Warrington-Wigan match, and sort of a sour taste for this match. A lot of the talk about this match was probably off the field rather than the action on it. Warrington ended up coming away with a 16-10 victory, all well and good for them. But again, the sport sort of under the headlights again. Gareth Carvell obviously leading his sort of charge for the player welfare and highlighted this, saying Wigan shouldn't have had to play so soon after coming back from Australia.
Yep.
The main talking point, unfortunately, was that.
Yeah, and I'll give my take on this. I think, Leeds play on the Sunday after being in Australia the week before, and I think that's absolutely fair enough. The RFL sorted them out there because Leeds competed in the World Cup Challenge, and that is a major competition still, and that is fair play. That didn't have to play that because obviously Garrett Everton kind of made that happen, and Leeds kind of pushed for it, but still, it's the World Cup Challenge. Wigan and Hull went over there effectively for trial games. Effectively. All right, they went for the Super League game as well, but there's a lot of, Wigan are hard done by because they had to play on the Friday. Wigan didn't have to go, is one take on it. Wigan did not have to go to Australia. They chose to go to Australia. They knew this was possible. Fair play. I thought the coverage on Friday night wasn't the best, if I'm honest, watching the game. And, I very rarely say this, but fair play to Sean Wade after the game because he kind of put them straight. But the entire coverage was it was very, very pro-Wigan, I thought, throughout the entire thing. I don't like to say it often, I know it's said quite a bit, but I don't really like to point out, but I think a little bit was just, Wigan chose to go over there, play on this Friday night, got a few injuries, that kind of thing, but the way they were speaking about them, you'd think they were winning. Honestly, it was 16-4 at one point with about 20 minutes to go, and Wigan had a bit of a purple patch. And the way Phil Clark, what have you, were going on about Wigan, you'd think they were winning 16-4. And I'm like, no, Warrington just dominated them for the first 40 minutes of this game. And I just don't know if that's great for the neutral to listen to be honest.
No, I think, there's always, well, not always should be a bit of a bias, but I think, sometimes there is, and sometimes that's picked up on. I think in terms of just touching on the Australian game again, I just said they've chose to go over there.
Yeah.
You prepare for it. You've got a squad of 24, whatever. There's going to be some players in his squad who probably can play in both games, and there's some players who can't. You can argue jet lag all you want. Your squad's never going to be 100% fit. Yeah, we get that. Prepare for it.
Yeah.
Put the procedures in place to do it, and so I don't use it as an excuse.
No.
A lot of people have been. It's suggested that Sean Wayne, he likes to use his excuses, and I think, as you said, if you've chose to do it, then you can't really use it.
Yeah, like I said, I won't select Wayne this week at all. So to be fair to him, he came out with Angel Powers after the game, and he said himself, "This was just poor, no excuses," kind of thing. Fair play. It was more the media giving them the excuses, which is, it's up to them. They're entitled to their opinion, but doesn't really sit well with me. But you look at the Wigan side, to be fair, and yes, there will have been jet lag, yes, there will have been tiredness, but the actual 17 players they put out on the field was pretty close to full strength from what I saw. So, and the game itself, we go on that, wasn't the best. It wasn't, to put it lightly. Talk a little about Warrington. How the game was as tight as it was, I'm really not sure, because anyone who watched that first half, Warrington absolutely dominated them for 30, 35 minutes. And I think, what was it, 8-0 at half time? It was only a couple of scores in it.
Close, yeah.
It was really, really close, and it kind of makes me worry a little bit about Warrington, because Wigan were clearly there for the taking. And Warrington just could not put them away. I was saying a bit at the weekend, I think Warrington are a very good side. They've got a big pack, what have you. They've got a very good side for the first 4 tackles. And on the 5th and 6th phase, they struggle. And it's just, maybe that's going to come. It's still early days. We're still only kind of week 3. But, Tyrone Roberts not really showing what we thought he'd show up to now. I don't know if he's fully fit. There's question marks over that. But, there's the chance in the second half where really straight after half time, I think it was, where they break up the right side. He's got it's Mitch Brown, isn't it? The winner. He's got Mitch Brown on his right hand side, and then he's got 2 players on his inside, and there's just a fullback to beat, and he chooses to kick rather than pass, and I'm like, what are you doing here? Just decision making just needs to be a lot better, I think, in that attack.
Yeah, I think it's sort of still early, especially for Warrington, because Roberts has been in and out of the side. You've not got all your combinations sorted just yet, and I think you can. Obviously, there's negatives to take from that, but I think the positive is they've still won the game.
Yeah.
Regardless of the score, you've won the game. You've got the points, and as we said before, you need to win some ugly games. 16-10. It's not a flattering scoreline for anyone involved in the game at all. But for Warrington, they can go to training this week and they say, right, lads, we've got stuff to work on. We've got a lot to work on, but we've still got the points. Well done, knuckle down, hard work. So, and then if you can get, whether it's Kevin Brown or Dec Patton partnered up with Tyrone Roberts, and just get them working, I think then we might see Tyrone Roberts come into his own. But as I said, he reminds me a bit of Ben Barber when he first come to Super League. He looks like he's not as fit as he was.
Yeah.
It looks like he's carrying a bit more on him. But I think, we've seen it with Ben Barber this year. The off season for him's been incredible. He's cut it all down and he's come back. Whether Roberts can find that midway through a season is a different question.
Tough, yeah.
But I think if he can, then and Warrington can get these combinations. We've mentioned them as a dark horse before. And if they're picking up the points, they're going to be around there at the end of the season, really.
Yeah, but we just spoke about ugly wins, I suppose, like that. And this wasn't a particularly great game to watch, in my opinion. But as you say, they got the win at the end, and Wigan pushed them. To be fair, I mean, they scored through Tony Clubber at the end. Just didn't have quite enough time to. It's one of those games. It was crazy. Warrington dominated so much of that game, and then realistically, if Tony Clubber had scored a minute earlier, honest to God, if Wigan had got the ball with a set, you felt that they could actually do it and tie that game up. So a really strange game. Like I say, Warrington, they got the points, and like I say, fair play, and they can kick on from that, try and get the combinations going, as you say. But I think if you're a Warrington fan, you'd be like, I want to be killing games off a lot quicker, a lot easier than we are doing at the moment.
Yeah, and another close game. In France, Catalan Dragons were down 16-14 by Wakefield. Catalan still struggling without a win in the competition, but another week where they've showed signs that they could probably be in the mix. They just don't have enough to push over that edge for me.
I'm just really disappointed in Catalans, if I'm honest. No, we spoke to them before the start of the season about they had a bit of a point to prove after being the £1 million game, things like that, and they were going to come out firing and made some half decent signings by the look of it, and I'm just not seeing it at the moment. I think it really is worrying signs for McNamara over there. The big signing David Mead, he's performed okay, but nothing much more, I wouldn't say. It's hard to put your finger on what is really wrong with Catalans, I think. But, games like this, and Wakefield are in good form, fair play, but Wakefield weren't particularly good either, I wouldn't have thought, on Saturday night. And when you've got a home game, Catalan need to be winning them home games and picking up points. Especially in tight games like that, they should have the advantage. And they just, as time ticked on, you realise, no, Wakefield are going to win this. Catalan just don't have enough in the tank.
Yeah, we mentioned the comfort of being at home and having that advantage, and no one's probably got that advantage like Catalans do. Probably more so later on in the season when they're a bit more used to playing in France. But it's still a huge advantage for them.
Yeah,
not having to travel compared to the other side. But as much as you can say, they're still without a win, I think there's a positive spin you could sort of put on it if they've played a few decent sides and they've stayed up there with them, barring the Widnes score.
Yeah.
They've showed a bit of resilience to sort of stick in there at the end, but it's not enough. We could go the whole season saying, oh, but there was only 2 points off a win today.
Yeah. And
they could finish the season with no wins, but lost every game by 2 points.
Exactly, the points difference might only be minus 50 or something,
Yeah.
but
at the end of the day, if they're not picking up the points, I just said it is worrying times,
Yeah.
Even though the teams above them only got 1 win each, it's still a win over Catalans and, a bit more sort of momentum and spruce into that side, whereas this side now, they must be sort of thinking and looking into this a bit more than they was at the start of the season.
Yeah.
As for Wakefield, another win, keeping themselves sort of up there in the mix. You can't really ask for anything more. Again, it's a tough away fixture for them. Get the win is the main priority.
100%.
Your attack in rugby and your scoreline is probably takes a bit of a backseat when you're over there.
Yeah, it's job done, isn't it, for Trinity? I think, ploughing on, getting these wins together. Tom Johnson scored another great try up the left wing. Just how he's got that pace after doing his ACL. I think it's his fourth or fifth game back after an ACL reconstruction. It's crazy. I mean, Mead is quick, and he's absolutely burned him up that left side. So, they just need to use him more, if anything. Just again, job done. It's just literally job done. And maybe it probably meant a little bit more 4 or 5 years ago to go over to Catalan and get a win.
Yeah.
But it's still important. It's still important because Catalan, you'd like to think Catalan are going to pick some wins up this year. And hopefully. And if they do, they're going to be at home. Because, we saw them against Hull KR and that is, obviously we didn't really speak to a great deal about it because we weren't here, but the Catalan's Hull KR performance was one of the worst I've seen in Super League. It was that bad. You can't imagine they're going to pick up many wins away from home. So any team that beats them at their place, that's probably a decent result.
Yeah, and moving on, Castleford Tigers against Hull FC, probably one of the bigger games this weekend. And Castleford sort of back to their old ways in a sense. 28-18 victory over Hull FC. So a big win from the Tigers against a tough team this year. Hull FC picked as one of the big teams, the big boys, as you say, going over to Oz, albeit could probably play on that card a little bit. But it's still, the scalp of Hull FC is still there for the Tigers.
Yeah, I wouldn't say back. I don't think we're quite at the level we were at last year, but there's certainly flashes of it. And I think especially in the second half, there was a period just after half-time where, and we did it a lot to teams last year, where we just kind of dominate teams in large patches, but not really put that many points on the board. But then we'd have a 5-10 minute spell where we'd score 2 or 3 tries. I think we did it against Warrington really early doors last season, where we blitzed them for 10 minutes, and it happened for the first time this year. It happened against Hull. Just after half time, we scored 2 back. We scored a try, and then got the ball back from the restart. Luke Gale kicks a 40-20, shifts the ball left. Michael Shenton scores again, and it just nothing wounds a team like 2 back-to-back tries like that. Plus, we'd just gone for half time as well. So just back to it, and it's a big win, like you say. Hull FC, they had players out. Obviously, Houghton's out. Scott Taylor didn't play. There's a few names out of there, but you play what's in front of you. And Hull FC were right in there. It was a good performance despite the players they had out. But yeah, big win for the Tigers, I would say.
Yeah, and sort of it's a different setup with the side this year, especially with Ellis and Gale in the halves at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's a different threat to the teams at the moment, because the kicking game between them two
it's huge.
is probably one of the best in the competition at the moment.
Yeah, I will say I think when outsiders kind of look at the Castleford team, obviously Luke Gale is the man they kind of pick out. But in all honesty, on Saturday it was Jamie Ellis. Gale was good. I think it's probably Gale's best performance this season so far. But he's not quite at the level he was at his peak last year, which is fair enough. I mean, he's had about a 2-week off season, I think, so that's fair enough. But yeah, Jamie Ellis he didn't put a foot wrong. He was absolutely outstanding, and we've touched on it before. The Sky Sports Man of the Match poll.
The wonderful poll.
Yes, the wonderful poll. We don't know who these legends are that pick it. Whoever the legends were that picked it at Castleford on Saturday were not at Castleford on Saturday, because they can't have been. Off the top of my head, I believe they picked Michael Shenton, Jesse Senilafeo, Mike McMeekin and Mark Sneed. Nothing against any of those four. I think they all play well. Shenton scored 2 tries. Jesse Senilafeo had a great game. Mike McMeekin scored a try, and Sneed is arguably Hull's best player. Was up there anyway. But how Jamie Ellis was not in that four is absolutely beyond me. Pretty much every single man of the match poll, other than the Super League one I saw on Twitter afterwards, had Ellis winning by a landslide. I think he won the fans' vote for Castleford by 75%. So whoever this panel is, they need seeing to be honest. They need to start watching these games rather than picking names like that.
Yeah, it does need a lot of work.
Oh, we could just get rid of it and just name it a man of the match like usual.
I mean, is probably the more traditional option and the better option.
It is the better option.
But we like to do things different in this game.
We do.
Moving on to the last game of the weekend, and the Widnes Vikings took on Leeds. A big win for Widnes, 23-6 against Leeds. And despite the Leeds players that were out or whatever, it's still a big win for the Vikings and one of the ones that they needed this season.
It's always a big scalp in it against Leeds. And I didn't realise, I looked at the stats after, and the Widnes have actually beaten Leeds at home the last 4 games. Leeds just don't like going to that plastic pitch.
No one likes going to that plastic
Don't like
pitch.
the old 4G. But that's 4 wins on the bounce at home against Leeds. And in fairness to the Rhinos, I mean, you looked at the team sheet beforehand, and it wasn't hard to pick a Widnes win out of that one. I mean, you looked at Leeds, and it was, when the team sheet came out, it was even worse than people expected. That people thought it was going to be bad. But I think 12, 13 usual first teamers, you have in your 17 and what in there. Both wingers out. Fair play to them for kind of hanging in there. I think it's quite close at half time, wasn't it? Credit to Leeds for kind of, like I say, toughing it out. But Widnes did what they have to do. Were professional about it. Again, play what's in front of them. And it's a big win for Widnes. And they're picking up the wins now. Yeah,
I just said it's the old cliche. Everyone said, but it was an easy side. You can only play what's in front of you at the end of the day. But for me, we've mentioned Widnes and what they're going to do this season. As we've just said then, it's one of their matches they need to win. If an opportunity's there, go and get it. Go and grab the 2 points. If they'd have lost that game, it's probably one of the only games in the season that people have said, well, you could have won that game.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, they've come in with a nothing to lose attitude this year. And, games like this are probably going to be vital for them. I'm not saying picking on teams when they're sort of down and out, but games where they can pick up the odd point, they're going to be the big ones that can possibly propel them up that table this year.
End of the day, there's no time for sympathy in the sport.
No.
You've got to take your opportunities, and this was definitely an opportunity, and fair play to them, they took it. It's a big win. Gets them back on track now. And I think we said it about Hull KR earlier, about being a banana skin, that kind of thing. Widnes certainly are. Widnes are a tough side.
Yeah.
They came to Castleford last week, showed the week before, and put on a real good show. A couple of Gilmore drop goal attempts away from beating Castleford at Castleford. It's one bad result at all. And Widnes are a tough side. They're well drilled. It's a young side. There's not a great deal of star power in that side really, but Dennis Betts has got to play some decent rugby, and tricky side to play.
Yeah, from one big win as we jump into the Championship to another. London Broncos against the Toronto Wolfpack, probably the pick of the game for the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't think many people would have expected the scoreline that was produced.
Well, as you said before we came on air, you heard it was 47-16 and you thought
Yeah.
Toronto would beat in London, didn't you?
Someone said, have you heard the Toronto game? And I know, and he's like, oh, 40-odd 16. I was like, wow. I was like, Toronto are backing up the talk after the game come in. Looking, it's a big win from the London side. Showing that Toronto aren't going to have it their own way this year. They've been shown that by, I think it was Barrow the other week.
Yep.
And, is the expansion all it's been cracked up to be?
Well, we talk a lot about expansion. And London's expansion, isn't it?
True.
It's strange, isn't it? All this talk about it, and your Toulouses of the world, your Torontos of the world, New York, whatever next year, and it's the original expansion side.
Yeah.
All these years later, London, who are really putting on a show, and full credit to them. I'd be more than happy for London to win Super League next year if they could do it. They've done it the hard way. They've done their time. They've done plenty of time in the Championship and National Leagues, and they've never had it all their own way. And I think Andrew Henderson left a real platform last season when he left to join Warrington, and Danny Ward's kind of taking it up. It's a good set of players there. They're making the Trail Finders ground at Ealing a bit of a fortress at the moment. So happy days for London. Great result.
Yeah, and it's sort of another result to shake up this Championship title race. It's sort of wide open, and the other game for me that did that this week, Toulouse versus Lee. Many people tipped Lee and Toronto to be the two teams to beat this season, and with that scalp on your head, it's dangerous because teams are going to want to come at you.
That's it. Yeah.
And Toulouse did exactly that, a 32-26 win against Lee, and it's not really going Lee's way this year.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head though. Like Lee going down instantly in the same way that Bradford were doing League One, in the same way that your Castleford and your Leeds do in Super League. You get a bullseye on your back, and teams will raise the game and they'll gun for you, as Barrow did, as Toulouse have. Toulouse are a good side anyway, but yeah, Lee now, I think it's a 2-game slide, isn't it? They've lost 2 now. So yeah, it's what the Championship is. It's a real shame there's not more coverage of it, because it's a real competition this year. It really is. If you look at, I've got the table up now. You got Lee down there in 9th after 4 games. The top. London, Toulouse, Featherstone, Dewsbury in there, 3 wins out of 4. It's a great competition. It really is a great competition. I think it's one of those that's going to go right to the wire. Whether that'll help them in the long run if we get into the 8s, whether teams are going to be burned out before they get to the 8s and then they're just going to be picked off by Super League teams, that is a possibility. But certainly in the regular season, it's a great competition.
Yeah, as you said then, if we can have a really strong Championship sides and a competition, battling out all year, that's great. Make it competitive, make people want to watch it.
Yeah.
So we can get, the TV rights in, the live streams, all that we've talked about previously, get all that involved, and then hopefully, even if this year they get to the 8s, and it's another year where the Super League sides show they've got that little bit of quality, and all the Super League sides stay up, unlike last year, but say this year all the Super League sides stay up, Championship sides stay here. But then again, you go again in the Championship, you refine yourself against these strong sides, the Championship sides grow, and then that's how we start to get this movement of promotion and relegation sort of working.
Yeah.
Even though it's not in the best format.
Yeah.
But I think that's how we close the gap, really, having this strong secondary competition.
It's huge.
And I think this year's probably the strongest
it's the strongest.
It's been
it's the strongest I've known it. Certainly. If nothing else, I think just having a strong Championship this year, top to bottom, is just going to give the powers that be a real headache, which is a good thing, in my opinion. Like there was talk last week, I guess we can kind of touch on this, is there was rumours coming around that the plan was to have 2 tiers of 10 going forward. Whether that be in a franchise model or a promotion relegation model, I'm not too sure. But if that means you're going to have 20 teams, I think the plan was basically a 2-tier Super League with 20 teams, and then a League One below it, and a League One would not be funded, which is, I mean, do we really have to go into how bad that is? That is shocking. But regardless, obviously that is not the way we want to go. I mean, if there was funding for the League One, all right, fair play. But so say they put forward this idea, you got 20 teams. Currently, there is 24 teams in Super League and Championship. Just having this strong Championship this year, like, who's the 4 that are going to go down? Like, they're making it very difficult for someone to pick 4 teams and to go down. No, especially if they can do well and if they can all go full. That'd be the big thing. If they could all go full time, that'd be great. But yeah, I think in such a troubling time, really, or in such a time when no one knows what's happening, just having just strong competition across the board, it's just going to give, like I say, the powers that be that maybe don't have the best interest of everyone at heart a real headache, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and it just gives sort of the fans of those clubs especially, but sort of the fans of rugby league, something else to talk about.
Yeah.
If the championship's up to something and, we keep getting these results every week that make us go, oh, wow, and sort of look up, chances are it should make someone in the RFL and the decision making, sort of prop their ears up. But
we'll see.
I think if nothing else, it just gives sort of a bit more enjoyment to the sport and a bit more competition that we need.
Like you just said, look at football. The Championship is a great competition.
Yeah.
I think the Championship is one of the 5th or 6th most watched leagues in the world. The second tier, like above some of the major European leagues, and it's just because there is, they've got a bit of funding in there, and it's just a competitive competition. Like no one expects Wolves this year to be top of the league, for example. It's a model which English sport does very well and always has done very well, and it's just trying to replicate that in league. And for me, we're on the right path. We really are on the right path. I just hope it isn't ruined in the next couple of years in favour of just pure expansion and just casting your Dewsburys and your Battlers to the side. No disrespect to them clubs.
No, I'd agree. Look after your own first. We've said it many a time.
Yeah. And
then see where we can go. Move on to the fixtures for the Super League next week, and not some huge, not the biggest games. Probably the biggest ones, Wigan Widnes, a local rivalry. Widnes coming off the back of a good win, Wigan coming off the back of a loss. It's probably a good matchup between them two, and should make for an interesting game in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of the rest of the games, Hull FC Warrington, probably your pick for the biggest game.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think again, similar kind of situation to the Wigan Widnes one. You've got Hull put up a decent performance against Castleford and fell short after coming back from Australia, and they're going to want to bounce back at home as well. And Warrington, of course, with the result, can they kick on from that? That'd be really interesting to see. To be honest, I think Hull are probably the better of the two sides, but I don't think there's a million miles away between Hull and Warrington at the moment. To be honest, especially with Hull having a few injuries as well.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Wakefield Huddersfield, the Sky game. That's an interesting one. A bit of a West Yorkshire derby there. One of the lesser talked about West Yorkshire derbies, but nevertheless, Wakefield, can they carry that on again at home? The last time they were at home in front of the Sky cameras at Salford, wasn't the most impressive performance. Nearly got turned over. Huddersfield, a bit of a point to prove. That's a big one.
Yeah, I think that one's probably got the making for a good game if both teams perform.
Yeah.
We spoke about both teams. Wakefield not turning up at home.
Yeah.
In front of the cameras. Sometimes Huddersfield being a bit off the boil. If they're both on the pace, that could be the game we're Saturday next week saying, wow, like it was a really close game, really entertaining game. But I just think this week for me, regardless of any of the game, whether it's Hull KR, Castleford on Thursday, or the games on Friday that we not spoke about, Leeds and Catalans, St Helens, Salford, it's about getting all teams to get some quality. We've said it a few times this week. Some of the games have just lacked that little bit of quality.
The standard across the board has been a little bit poor so far this year.
The games have just been sort of a bit scrappy. And, say it's early on.
It doesn't help that it's. If anyone's been to a Super League game or a Championship game in the last 3 weeks, it's very, very, very cold. It's really cold at the moment. But we've just come to the studio today and it's snowing. That's not good. That's not ideal. It's not good rugby league conditions. But yes, it doesn't help being this early in February. Well, not early February now, but it was early in February. The conditions don't help at all. But yeah, the standard has been a little bit poor this early in the season, which I think would bring us quite nicely to our question, as it happens.
Question for this week.
Yeah. It's an extra special one this week.
Go on, have you got the question?
Shall I introduce?
You can ask the question because I've not got it.
This is the question from Barry John Williams, who is my father,
Wee.
my dad, who's pitched in and asked in the aftermath of the Hull FC Wigan game a couple of weeks ago in Wollongong, if this is going to be a regular thing, which personally I believe it will. I think it will happen more in the future. So if there's going to be Super League games on a relatively regular basis in Australia, would it be better suited to the league to have them later on in the year rather than at the beginning in order to provide a better advertisement for the English game?
I think, in my opinion, you can look at this two ways. You can say, yes, the English teams are going to be more prepared, so therefore better to make an account of themselves. But in the same vein, so are the Australian sides.
Yeah.
Melbourne, that was, I don't know if it was the first match or it was very early pre-season for them.
If that were their first trial, that is terrifying.
It is, trial matches are going on for the NRL sides now.
Yeah.
And if that was just Melbourne in pre-season, imagine what they'd do midway through the season.
Yeah.
So you can say, Leeds would be better. But if Melbourne were that much better now and then improve throughout the season, how much better would they be then? And I think that's the main issue for me. I think more so, not so much the Leeds, Melbourne. I think that's a bit of an unfair comparison because Melbourne
quite
are
extreme, isn't it? Yeah.
Probably one of the best sides in recent years for me.
Yeah, that's one of the best sides I've ever seen. Without exaggeration. Yeah.
You can't pick a player in that side really who you're gonna be sort of replacing. Everyone in that squad is there on merit and have played well over the past season, barring Brodie Croft, who's just come in for Cooper Cronk, but
just another one.
I think he showed
just another youngster who's just a world beater
in that game that he has the merit to be there.
Yeah, 100%.
So in terms of playing it later on, I don't think it'd help, but it wouldn't hinder either.
I think my point is, I don't think it really matters because I think it's got to the point now where you can see it just by watching an NRL game. If you watch an NRL game and you watch a Super League game, they're very, very different.
Yeah.
They're extremely different at this point, to the point where we're pretty much marketing two different products.
Yeah.
I would say. And I think we just kind of need to stop comparing. I think we just stop. At this point, there's too much of a money disparity. It's just, there's too much. Frankly, they've just got too much talent. They've got too many players playing rugby league compared to us, whether it be from grassroots all the way up. They have a reserve grade competition, which is another argument. We do not.
Yeah.
They just have everything in place to be the elite Premier competition, and they are. We are not. It's simple as that. Super League is not comparable at this point. Maybe it has been in the past. We're talking 20, 30 years ago, maybe it was. Nowadays, Super League is just not comparable to the NRL. It's two different products, so I really don't think it matters when we play this game, because we're going over there no matter what, and it's just a different style of game. There will not be an NRL game this year, no matter when it is in the season, that is going to look anything like that Wigan this whole game.
No.
At all. Because yes, the skill level is slightly less. There's more errors in the game. It's a little bit more scrappy. But on the flip side, there's a lot more flair. There's a lot more taking chances. It's a very different style of product, and by all accounts in Australia, they enjoyed it. The fans, the natives that turned up to watch the game really enjoyed watching something a little bit different, because it wasn't defensive. There wasn't the two referees. I don't think it's really that relevant when it's played. To be honest, I think it's just a completely different product, and we just need to market that as such.
Yeah, I think their game's a lot different. It's a lot quicker, off the mark for me.
Yeah.
Out with dummy half, everything's quick, play the ball, sort of rushing through it. Whereas Super League probably a little bit slow, a bit more sort of thought out than the NRL. I know NRL's probably a lot more off the cuff. We've got teams over here who play that sort of game.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah.
But for me, every side in the NRL is that quick, athletic side. But that's what the players promote, and it's promoted all through the ranks, as you mentioned, through the reserve grade. But I think the biggest deal for me would be, imagine how hard it would be to make Melbourne play Leeds in the middle of a season.
It wouldn't happen. That's the big thing, yeah.
The biggest, it was up for debate whether it was even going to happen up until the start of
And by all accounts, if Leeds had not have really, really, really pushed for it, it would not have happened. Yeah.
So Leeds have had to push for that massively to make Melbourne say, okay, then come over here, play us. There's no chance Melbourne are going to take a week out of the schedule in the middle of a season in which you think they've got to pack the regular season, State of Origin, Test games on Anzac Day, and the finals campaign, and somehow find a week off and say, go on then, we'll play Leeds for a World Cup challenge.
I think the only way that will ever happen, and I have no confidence this will happen, is if they bring in an actual international window, an actual weekend, or week even, where they bring in, that would be mid-season probably, where you bring in your international games, England play Australia, New Zealand play Fiji, whatever, so your representative players go off. During that week off, that is when you could potentially do a World Cup challenge between clubs, but then is it really relevant anyway? Because your rep players aren't playing, so you'd have two reserve, two effectively A teams, playing each other to be crowned the best team in the world. Then it doesn't make sense. But that is the only way I can envisage it really happens at the moment, mid-season. So, failing that, I suppose you just bring the Super League and NRL seasons in line, which should happen anyway. To be fair, because the Super League does kick off too early.
Yeah,
but that doesn't really change this point, does it? So.
No, I think if you brought the seasons in line and then at the end of the season, winner versus winner, play then.
Yeah.
It comes into question then when you've got World Cups and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It becomes a problem then.
It's a big turnaround. This is a very short turnaround, isn't it? So.
But I think at the moment it's probably as good as it's going to get playing at this middle, start of the year sort of thing. In terms of the quality between the two sides, I think, I don't think Hull FC and Wigan were really that far off.
No.
It wasn't such a massive difference that we've seen probably 2-3 years ago when South Sydney turned up to Saints and put 40-odd points on the board.
However, I do think in the absence of that being a proper World Club series and marketed as such, whether they were in with the same intensity as South's coming over to St Helens, travelling all that way, they were coming for a fight, you know what I mean? Whether South or St George were this time, I don't know. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I think them playing it as sort of a trial match rather than a mini competition, it can affect them, but in terms of pushing it back further into the season, for me, it just gives the teams like Melbourne a bigger scope to show the quality difference for me.
Yeah, on my point, I think there's such a disparity between the two leagues now. I think the World Cup Challenge, although I understand why it's important, but I think as a concept, it's a little bit dead at this point. Like I say, my point is to stop comparing the two leagues. So why on earth should there be a cup competition between the two? Because we know who's the better. Let's be honest. I know we can beat Cronulla. It's a different kettle of fish. It's almost like that. I think World Cup Challenge, pretty much at this point, wherever it is played, will probably dictate who wins.
Yeah.
If it's in Australia, the Australian side's going to win. If it's over here, then the Australians are not going to put everything into it.
Yeah.
And then the British side has got a decent chance of winning. It's a bit of a dead concept at the moment. And I think we should just stop comparing to Australia. Just stop comparing to them. They don't really care about us. Let's be honest. No. They don't really care.
Apart from taking a few of our good players and then carrying them over there.
They care about the England internationals, but other than that, just the Aussie media, the Aussie clubs themselves, they don't really give a toss about Super League. Let's be honest. So I think we should have shown us hand and so we don't give a toss about you a little bit. Let's not be dictated by them. So I'm not entirely sure where I'm going there. I'm just angry at Australia, to be honest.
No, I think focus on our own game. I think the fact that Leeds had to push so hard to get that World Club challenge.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, isn't it?
It's embarrassing. I think focus on us and then in a few years come back. I'm not saying scrap it all together, that's a bit more, but, at the end of the day, if they don't want to come over here, if they don't want to play, just say,
fine.
All right then, focus on ourselves, build up our competition, and then get back to a place where the Australian side see it as, we want to play, we want to win. And I think then we can talk about when it's going to be played and the quality between the two sides.
It's one of them where if it gets to this time next season and say Melbourne win it again, and we're in the same boat, and they're really kind of playing hard to get, just call the bluff. Call the bluff. Say, right, no World Cup challenge this year. That's another trophy you're not getting, and we'll just take it. We'll take our two best sides. We'll go to Toronto. We'll play again there.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, if you can do that 4 or 5 years down the line, suddenly you're getting, in an ideal world, if you're getting 20,000 to watch a game in Toronto, Australia are going to realise, hang on a minute, we've missed a trick here.
Yeah.
That's the only way. You got to play them at their own game a little bit. Got to try something a little bit different.
Yeah, and that's all we got time for this week. As always, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Any questions down below, any feedback. But as I said, thanks for joining me this week, Ross.
Pleasure as always. Nice to be back.
And that's all we've got time for. See you same time next week. See you later.